If I'd have stayed back home, never spread my wings, if I'd put down my dreams to put you first, I could have been her. Welcome to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. I am so happy you're here. I had to start off this episode with a song that got me through, and I brought this up before. Ella Langley, I think she's amazing. She has a song called Could Have Been Her, and I think it pertains to a lot in life where if we made certain decisions, we could have been other people. And I think everyone can relate to that, not just women, that it's just kind of a human truth that if you don't know who you are, you'll be told who you are, because the people around you in society like to kind of gear us humans and teach us who we should be. And if we don't have enough mind to decide that on our own, we will easily conform to what we should be because it seems easy and safe and familiar, because you likely know other people in your circle that are conforming to the same. And so that's a little bit about today's episode, that I want to talk just about the harm in pretending. I think so many times in our life, I know we hear fake it till you make it, and I think that's a little different. I think if it's something that you really want, you have to truly believe that you can do it. I 100% believe in you being able to visualize and see yourself becoming that person. And in order to do so, you kind of often have to fake, in the sense of before you're there, right? And that's the only way you'll get there, is believing that you can. So a little bit of the fakeness, I think it's just your willingness to go, I don't have to have all the answers, but I know I'll figure it out along the way. And that's something different. And that's something I wish more people could kind of put themselves in the mindset of being who they want to be. But what I'm going to talk about today is really when I finally realized that I the song Could Have Been Her. If you just say that about anything, it's so hard, because every decision in your life, you know that your life could have been different had you had made different decisions. That's the craziest thing. And I know it is a waste of time, really, to go back and go, well, if I would have done that, then maybe this, then maybe that. I mean, really, that is just a bit of wasted energy. But I also think kind of learning, when we do this reflection of like, I made that decision at the time, was that the decision that I wanted to make? When you're thinking about making future decisions and how you're doing things in the future, I do believe we cannot focus on the past, but we can take lessons from it. We let it go. We don't dwell on it. There was a quote that someone said recently that I wrote down, and it said, I looked at the darkness, but I didn't stare at it. Loved that. And I think that's one of those instances in our lives where if we really look back at the decisions we made, and there were ones maybe we didn't want to make, we made them for whatever reason, was it for other people and not ourselves? Because I think when we start making decisions for ourselves, everything starts working out better, because we want to make those decisions. There's like this excitement, and there's this like empowerment, and life just feels like you're creating your own way instead of being forced down a path that you don't want to be on. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that a lot of people face, is determining if the path they're on is the one that they want to be on, or the one that they think they should be on because of the outside noise. And that's really probably what the hardest part about a lot of things in my life before I moved to Tennessee was about. I was really molding a lot of things to kind of fit what I thought was expected of me to look successful or to look put together or to be, I don't know, to just live this safe life, right? And I want to talk about something that was really, really hard for me that I think maybe other people can relate to. And this is pretending to care when you don't anymore. And I remember when I decided that I wanted my divorce and or the divorce. And, you know, it wasn't something I think that my ex at all really expected. And I think it kind of took him by surprise, which I hear often is the case. And although, you could probably have laid out certain things to the person, often it just doesn't, they weren't maybe dwelling on those things the way that you were. So to them, it was a bit of a shock. And I think about conversations that we had, and it's such a chaotic time when you're getting a divorce because it's like your whole life's changing and you kind of just want it to go back to the way it was. I think on both sides. I think there was moments where both of us just wanted that. And I kept fairly mute on that point because of the reason of the harm of pretending. I knew that if I wasn't clear with my intentions to leave the marriage and not lead him on, that he would have a harder time letting go. So I wasn't doing that to be harsh. I was doing that to be honest, to be truthful, because he deserved that respect. And that was something that I wanted to give him. I was already feeling the guilt of doing him wrong for leaving, and I hated that. So the last thing I really wanted to do was to sit here and pretend that there was this possibility that we were going to get back together when I absolutely knew we were not. And I don't mean that in at a rude or disrespectful way. I think it's what I'm learning now. I'm out here in this new world with single friends and interacting with, the challenges that come with like modern day dating and accessibility based on social media and the amount of people you can meet, not only through dating apps, but also just being out in a vibrant city like Nashville. I think like people just kind of want to like lead people on for their own ego or their own comfort, or it's just convenient to have them around. And so they aren't like clear with their intentions for the person. And it really hurts on more of a long-term basis than just the short-term. Look, I don't see any future with you. That's not what I want. I think it's almost kinder, if I'm honest, to say, look, this isn't going to be what you want it to be because that's not what I want. And it doesn't even have to always be about them. It's not, sometimes it's just not the right timing with the right person and life just has to change. And I think so many times we waste our energy and our time, which we don't have. I talk about, we don't have that much time. So to waste our energy and time being hung up over someone that doesn't want to be with us just seems like you're putting your heart in a jail cell and you're hoping that this person will decide, never mind, I'm going to come and get them out of jail when they have no interest in even visiting you. I don't know, that was the best analogy, but I'm just saying I think we kind of need to, there's two things as a society, I think need to be a little more mindful of is being honest with our intentions with someone, because we all have hearts and we all have hard times and we all have challenges. And I have been guilty of saying what someone wants to hear because I think that's the nice thing to do. And you're trying to be nice. But when it comes to affairs of the heart, when it comes to wasting someone's energy on love and the tough stuff about a future, being true with how you feel about them is kinder than pretending to care when you know that that's not where you're at. And I remember how hard it was for me to say, it's never going to be. It's never going to be. And it was so uncomfortable and it felt so rude and so unkind and so hard to look at someone that you care about and that you told you would be with them forever, that you no longer feel that way. Like it almost seems unfair. And you almost don't want to say it. It'd be easier to just drag them along. But if you drag them along, it's really selfishly because you don't want to be uncomfortable, one, or because you're just like still wanting to have that backup plan. And so you're literally just using a person's heart as a backup plan of your own fear of not being able to find someone else, which is also rude. And that's why I knew early on I was not going to do that. I was going to be honest, even though it was uncomfortable, so that he could feel the freedom of sooner of getting over it. Because if you're stringing someone along, you're taking away their time from moving forward and moving on. And that's probably, I don't know, taking time away from someone that they could have with someone else is probably a very unkind thing to do. So all that to say is that there was a lot of pretending in my life, and I'm trying to just not pretend about things anymore. If I don't want to be someone's friend, which sounds rude, and that's rarely the case, but if the interaction just doesn't feel like something that I want in my life, I'm not going to pretend that I want t- to make that friendship priority in my life, because they should probably spend their time with someone that wants to be there. And that to the previous me would sound so rude, but pretending to care, pretending to be someone that can show up for that person when you don't want to isn't very, I don't know why we do that so much. And sometimes people pretend to care for convenience, like, which I kind of don't understand, like, but a lot of people seem to like use people for their advantage. But I feel like there's a whole other side of freedom when you truly only surround yourself with people that make you feel better after the interaction. Not because of what they did for you, or because they got you into this, or they connected you with that, or they paid for this, or I don't know, the number of reasons why people interact with people they don't necessarily like. I don't know if it's worth the trade-off, because I do believe that not only is that an ungenuine connection with someone, or a disingenuine is that, but it drains your energy and your capacity to really connect with someone because you don't have a connection with them. You just are simply using them to get somewhere. And I think even in relationships, people can do that. And it's just, it lacks the reward and amazing part of having a real human connection. And that for me has been the coolest thing about kind of doing my life again. Do I miss my back home friends? Absolutely, because the connections that I have with so many of them, I don't know how I would recreate with someone new. But being able to make these like genuine connections with people that I've known for such a short amount of time, now in this different mindset and this different space that isn't just a convenience friendship, it's built off genuine connections with people is so cool. It's so nice. And one thing I'll say is I get asked a lot or frequently enough about making friends as an adult. And I think one of the key things that why it's been fairly easier for me, even though it did take some time, was that I genuinely want to connect with people without, like I said, using that relationship for anything more than a friendship or a connection and to share common interests and to learn about a person and to, you know, build each other up. And I think when you build a foundation in any relationship based on some genuine connection and commonalities and interests and things, and it's not like, what can you do for me lately? It's just the best way to start building friendships. And I think sometimes what's hard for adults to do that, I mean, outside of the obvious, like just settings, we're not in school, we're not it's just so much different than childhood. But I think one thing is like ego kind of gets in the way sometimes, like insecurities and ego. So either our ego of like, well, we're kind of afraid that if we reach out and try to befriend someone and they don't want to be our friend, then that's something wrong with us. They don't like us. What's wrong with us? And that kind of hurts the ego. But I like to believe that like if someone's meant to be a friend in my life or a relationship, even in relationships, thinking about that, then if they don't want to, that's okay. I wouldn't force any relationship in my life, friendship or other. And so it's not really about me. It's just we're not a right fit for a friendship or anything else. But I won't know unless I interact with them. I won't know unless I say, "Oh, yeah," and then I can usually tell on a friendship scale within 5-10 minutes of speaking with someone, male or female, if we could be good friends. I can usually tell pretty immediately, and or at least friends. And then maybe after a few interactions, I'm like, "This is the kind of person that I could develop a really close friendship with or not." And you don't have to be close friends with everyone. Nobody has time to have that many close friends. Small circles, totally fine. But I think just putting yourself out there and being intentionally who you are opens the most amazing doors. So I'll tell you, when I came to Nashville for when I first moved here, I was still here with my friend that drove out with me. And we met a girl, and I might have kind of mentioned it, but we met a girl out when we were getting a bushwhacker. And she was giving recommendations for a different drink since they were out of bushwhackers. And we started talking to her. And my friend that was out with me, Elaine, I love you. She's also like me in the sense that she's very like open and outgoing and communicative or communicative. Like she'll just talk to anyone. Stop trying to be fancy here, Heather. She'll talk to anyone. So she starts talking to her, and I said I just moved out here. And I don't know if I said this before, so I don't wanna but I remember because I remembered her so well because I was like, "What does that even mean?" But when I met her, she was like, "You just moved here by yourself with no friends and no family?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Oh." She's like, "Well, you're cute, you're blonde, you'll be just fine." And I thought, "That's a weird thing to say to someone," but Okay, great. But I got, I guess, what she was saying, and it was probably more about me just being friendly than anything else. But that friendship was so key to me because without meeting her, and even though we didn't reconnect till months later, that friendship led me to so many other friendships. So it's kind of one of those that if you can make a good connection with one person and they have, and not for the intentions of getting their connections and their other friends, but that just is a part of it. And then I've met so many friends through her. And then the two guy friends that I met a couple months after me and her started hanging out a lot, I met them after a show by myself, and they have introduced me to so many people through knowing them. So, literally, me just finding 3 friends pretty much on my own. I have made other friends on my own since then, but those 3 friends were the base of all of my building blocks of friendships out in Nashville. And then through having some friends, then you can go out to do certain things, and then your friends meet you there, and then you can meet other friends and you feel a little more confident because you know your friends are coming. Like one of my other best friends I met out here, I met her while I was waiting for the first friend I had to show up to something, and she was late, but she was there alone. And so I invited her to hang out with me and my friend. So it's just easy to make friends if you are open to, I don't know, learning everyone's story, being genuinely you, being truthful about who you are. I think I forgot kind of how to make new friends. And once, because I had had so many of the same friends for so long and really hadn't made a ton of new friends. But once it's kind of once you start doing it, it just is easy again. And you remember what it feels like. So the confidence of that one first friend brings you into this whole other, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And I feel like that's important for us as we grow because unfortunately, and I think divorce showed me this very much so, is that we kind of sometimes outgrow friendships that were always there when we, and I don't know a better term to use, but I almost level up in our life or change. And when I say level up, I don't mean being better than the other people necessarily, just meaning well, now I'm on this whole new level. And the same characters that were in the last one just don't seem to kind of fit this script. And so I can either try to fit in with people that may not be for me anymore, and that will feel uncomfortable. Or I can go out into the world and attract the people that are like minded like me in this world. And I think we kind of don't do that enough. I think that's the best part about moving out of the state, out of wherever you grew up, is that you're kind of forced to do that. You're forced to reset. You get to choose who you want to be based on your own thoughts and not just the group of friends you've always had and the people that have always told you who you are or expect you to show up as that same person for the rest of your life. Because if you don't want to be that person anymore and you're just showing up as that person for other people, you're being really unfair to yourself. So that's the harm in pretending, is that you don't get to live the life that you want to live. And I don't mean it to be gloomy, so I'll try not to be so sad here, but I just am hoping to motivate you to feel okay with going, I don't know what I'm doing and I just know I don't want to do this, and pivoting at any time in your life. It's okay. You can. You're allowed to. I remember I was reading something talking about, and I'm sure these are all over the place, but just what people had said at the end of their life, because I think we're all just curious, like, that whole deathbed scenario, like, what are you gonna wish you did? And one thing I tell people that I, meet now, which is true, I stopped watching television. Like, I still love sports, but I don't even have my television is literally decoration. And that was kinda like probably there was things about the divorce, like, that was like a comfort thing, watch a show before bed, and my life just changed a lot. But then I'm like, "Why would I?" And I'm not, like, judging it people that do, because obviously more people do than not. But one thing that stuck out in my mind is when you talk about, like, making decisions like tomorrow's not promised, right? And I've already talked about my dad, and losing him so young has really impacted my perspective on life. But I read about, like, what people wish they would have done differently, if anything, at the end of their life. And no one's ever like, I wish I would have watched more TV. Like, that's 100% nothing that anyone ever says. So I remind myself that often. But again, no judgment. It's just one of those things that it sticks out in my head. But the other thing that I think about is this man was talking about on his deathbed that he wished he would have lived for himself and not worried so much about what everyone else thought about how he should live. And I 100% know that there's so many of us, and probably a majority of us listening, that can say there's aspects of their life that they're living for someone else. And I get it. If you have children, I mean, there's things that you have to sacrifice in your own for them, right? And that's completely understandable. But I think choosing yourself and creating happiness within you just brings so much of a brightness into everyone else in your life. And if anyone's angry or upset about you being who you wanna be or making the choices you wanna make, and their opinions are negative and loud, then those are just people that are not really necessary in your life, and they're definitely holding you back. And if there's someone that you care for, that you know doesn't care for you the way that you need them to, you should stop pretending that they're going to, and you should let them go. And if there's someone you're pretending to care about and you're just stringing them along, you should probably stop that, because it's a whole bunch of wasted time and energy for nothing meaningful. I feel like that's just like the same thoughts that I had at the end of leaving my corporate career, is that a lot of the things I was doing didn't feel as meaningful as I thought they needed to. And I just didn't want to do that kind of work anymore. I needed a break from pretending that what I was doing was really bringing anything anything great into the world. So I'll leave it at this. Another lyric from Could Have Been Her, because I'm obsessed with that song. But it said, if I'd have shut my mouth, faked that smile, probably could have made it work for a while. We can pretend and things can work for a while, but nothing that you're pretending to care about needs to stay. If you're pretending, just let it go. Let it. Thank you so much for listening to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. You matter.